Alright, can you guys hear me okay? Let me know in the chat room. I'm going to assume that you can hear me okay. You guys can hear me, alright? Right? Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Gotta be sure to test the audio every time. I think I got it figured out what I have to do to make the audio sound okay, though. Can you hear me in the chat room? You guys hear? Good. Okay. Cool. Minimize this. All right. Welcome back. Well, Legends of Tomorrow just ended, and oh boy. You know what I'm finding out very quickly is that Rip Hunter is a very bad leader. This guy just seems to me like a lot of the problems they run into on this show could be easily avoided if Rip actually knew what he was doing. So let's dive into this episode, shall we? Legends of Tomorrow, Season 1, Episode 4, White Knights. The team breaks into the Pentagon to get information on Vandal Savage. One has to wonder why they didn't think to plant some kind of future-y tracking device on him when they left him in the 1970s last week, so they could avoid all this trouble, but whatever. After that goes horribly wrong, they go to Russia to stop some kind of plot that Savage is involved in, and wouldn't have been involved in the first place had the team not been the biggest fuck-ups in the Arrowverse not named Barry Allen. And half the team ends up getting captured. Part of me can't help but think that simply letting Vandal Savage take over the world might be a better option than having these clowns try to save it. The following is a list of incredibly stupid things that happened in this episode. The team having to infiltrate the Pentagon and steal a file because of reasons. Rather than having Palmer just shrink down and take the file without anyone being the wiser, they concoct this ridiculously elaborate plan with a whole slew of things that can and do go wrong. Because this team is a bunch of idiots. Seriously, why couldn't they just have Palmer shrink down and steal the file that way? Palmer even makes a sarcastic quip about this. But there was no explanation for why that was not an option. It would have been so much easier than what they did. I don't know why this plan sounded like a better idea. All the ways this plan backfires include, but are not limited to, Firestorm accidentally getting them made due to fucking up the electrical system or whatever the hell he was doing. Heatwave shooting a flamethrower in the Pentagon. How the fuck did he get a flamethrower inside the fucking Pentagon? Did they not have metal detectors or cavity searches in 1986? You would think the headquarters of American National Security would have better security than this. Oh, Christ. And then, the biggest brain fart of all. In order to cover their escape, Rip Hunter has no choice but to wipe all evidence of them from the security tapes, from the Pentagon's records, along with everything else. Yeah, he wiped all the information in the Pentagon. During the Cold War. because these writers either don't know or don't care what a ripple effect is. Or maybe they do. Maybe they do, actually, because the second half of the episode is basically the team trying to fix a problem that they themselves created in the pilot. Remember that big dust-up where Savage is trying to unload a nuclear bomb? Well, it turns out the Russians got a look at Firestorm during that fight and thought, I gotta get me one of those. So it turns out that the team unknowingly gave the Soviets the idea to create their own Firestorm during the Cold War. Yeah, this seems like something the Pentagon should probably handle. Oh, wait, no, the team just crippled the Pentagon. That could be a problem. It is a minor miracle that most of this team is still alive. At the rate they're going, I keep half expecting them to fall ass backwards into a pit of angry cobras or something at any given moment. But if I'm being fair, there were some good things about this episode, too. Alright, I liked Sarah and Kendra finding some common ground due to their similar yet different circumstances, and the argument between Jax and Professor Stein I thought was really well handled. You know, it wasn't about either of them being stupid, just two guys who are having trouble getting along. Jax resents Stein for dragging him along on this mission and being too controlling, and Stein's being harsh with Jax because he's still carrying around a lot of baggage from Ronnie's death. That was all pretty good character stuff here. And them trying to infiltrate the Russian science installation at the end was accomplished with Stein, Cold, and Palmer playing their parts more or less competently until things go bad, though one has to wonder why Rip Hunter didn't have the trained assassin and the girl who can fly waiting as backup. Didn't seem like Rip had a backup plan at all, actually. Huh. So, as you can imagine, half the team gets captured. But at the very least, Cold manages to get away with the nuclear MacGuffin, putting the kibosh on Commie Firestorm. So, maybe things are starting to turn the corner. Of course, I thought the same thing when they recovered the magic knife that can kill Vandal Savage if Kendra stabs him with it last week. And then they just left Savage lying there unconscious instead of taking him to Kendra. So who the hell knows? Believe it or not, this was probably the best episode so far. Bear in mind, the previous 3 episodes set that bar really low. And this team is still full of incompetent fuck-ups, but there actually were some genuinely good bits hiding in this one. Yeah, the drama between the Firestorms worked, and I was kind of enjoying Cold and Palmer's interaction there. It was kind of strange, though, that Ray couldn't get anywhere with Russian scientist lady. I mean, him acting like a stalker worked like a charm on Felicity last season. So, while all the problems are still there, with a ridiculous amount of really stupid things going on, this was the first episode that showed a few signs of improvement being made. So while I hesitate to say that they might be able to salvage this train wreck, maybe they can turn it into less of a disaster than it was shaping up to be. Fingers crossed, I guess. Comedy of errors. Yeah, that would be a good way to describe this show. The irony is that Sarah, Cold, Firestorm, or Hawkgirl could all be great spin-off shows on their own, but together in the same show, the chemistry just isn't there. I think there's chemistry between certain characters, or certain actors, shall I say. But yeah, throw all these characters together and they just, it's not working out. The whole thing is just a big train wreck. Were you a fan of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers back in the day? Thought it was... well, try to keep things on topic, guys, okay? We're talking about Legends of Tomorrow right now. We talk about other stuff at the end. Just saying. Thought it was a so bad it's good show. I only liked the Pink and Green Rangers because they were only Rangers that were interesting. Uh, yeah, I watched Power Rangers. I was one of those kids. Yeah. I was not a fan of the Green Ranger actually. He was a big he was a big Gary Stu character for me. Plus, past a certain point, he just kind of took over the whole show, which kind of bugged me. Um, when I heard this episode was called White Knights, I assumed it was about social justice warriors and Tumblr. Yeah, Tumblr would like to think so as well. The chemistry isn't the problem. The problem is, holy shit, these people are stupid. Yes. There you go. Did you hear Guardians of the Galaxy is getting a second movie? Yeah. The first one was a huge hit. So the sequel was announced very quickly. That's been a thing for a while. They have a script and everything. Yeah, I'm well aware. Over under on that list? What list? Please clarify. What's your take? All right, guys. The way this works is that we kind of try to stay on topic. We limit questions to the show that we're discussing at the time. And then after we get through all the shows, then we can talk about other stuff, okay? So if you had a wrestling question, save it until the end for future reference. What you're taking what Vince said in the ratings and saying they don't matter? So Vince said ratings don't matter, huh? Well, I think the USA Network would probably disagree. Explanation for why Titus O'Neil got suspended. I'm not going to say that what O'Neil did was a good thing to do, because it wasn't. You don't grab your boss's arm like that for any reason. It's not something that's done. So I could see him getting reprimanded a little bit, maybe getting reamed out verbally in front of the roster or something. But suspending the guy for 90, now 60 days for just grabbing him in what appeared to be him just wanting him to do the polite thing and let Stephanie go first, that seems like a really huge overreaction. Just my opinion. Okay, so try to save your wrestling questions for the end, okay? Because we're talking about TV shows here. Did you like a Super Bowl commercial with Hulk and Ant-Man? I didn't see it. This plan sounded like a good idea because Rip Hunter is stupid. Yeah, he's pretty dumb. If they're going to do that, they might as well have just attacked the Pentagon. Why not? They already committed high treason anyway. Frankly, I'm surprised the Russians didn't launch after hearing that. They had spies everywhere, so why not? Good question. Yeah, it occurs to me that wouldn't it be an interesting twist if the whole reason Vandal Savage was able to take over the world in the future in the first place was because this team fucked up the timeline so much? Wouldn't that be a really interesting twist in the finale? It's like their incompetent attempts to save the future actually ended up dooming it because they have no idea what the fuck they're doing and keep fucking up so much. I mean, talk about ripple effects here. I mean, they've already killed a whole bunch of people in the past, effectively eliminating all those people from a timeline. Okay, so now those people's children will never be born. Crippling the Pentagon at one of the pivotal points in recent American history. That's the kind of thing that's going to have a lasting impact on the timeline, isn't it? I'm just saying. Legends of Tomorrow is wannabe Suicide Squad. Yeah, I guess the only difference is that all the bad shit they're responsible for is completely unintentional. Back in the 90s, Darkwing Duck had his team of super... yeah, okay. It was made up of his girlfriend, the girl he was cheating on her with, an autistic dinosaur, and Gizmo Duck. It was still more competent than Legends of Tomorrow. The character stuff is probably the most interesting part of the show. The plot business, on the other hand, yeah. TGA just summed it up. What charms one girl annoys another. No two people are the same. She was in no way Palmer's type or vice versa. No one is Ray Palmer's type unless her type is purple, man. Okay. Yeah, the character stuff was fairly okay this week. The plot is kind of a mess. There were signs that the character interactions are improving, though. I was talking about the list of idiotic moves and things that went wrong with Legend's plan. I actually thought you were going to number that list. Oh, well, I wasn't really keeping track. Sorry. Somehow I think when Jax gets back home, he'll need to remember a whole bunch of new British kings after what they did. Yeah, the future is going to look radically different when they're done fucking it up. Yeah, because when Rip Hunter's boss showed up and said, maybe we'll have to send out a whole bunch of people to fix all the problems you've created in the timeline. I don't think he was bullshitting. I think that was the God's honest truth. Oh boy, what a mess. Moving on. The Flash, Season 2, Episode 13, Welcome to Earth 2. Barry, Cisco, and Wells travel to Earth 2, where they encounter bizarro versions of everybody they know from Earth 1. Meanwhile, a new metahuman attacks, and since Barry is not around to act like an idiot, that responsibility falls on Jay Garrick. Remember last week's episode, which I thought was actually really good because Barry never acted like a dumbass? Well, it looks like that was a fluke. Barry, Cisco, and Harry arrive on Earth 2 to rescue Harry's daughter. And Barry does the only smart thing he'll do this week when he decides to replace his Earth 2 doppelganger, take his place, so he can go to the police station and get information about Zoom from the police records. That was actually a good idea. Even though I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have been necessary. He could just speed into the police station, check the records in 2 seconds, and then speed out. But I'll meet them halfway on that part. But that wouldn't be... I guess he wouldn't be Barry if a good idea didn't immediately go to shit. So, not 5 minutes into this plan, does Barry completely forget why he's even there. Getting completely distracted by the fact that on Earth 2, he's married to Iris. And Iris is a cop. And they live together. And Joe is a singer at a nightclub. And him and Joe don't get along. Who the hell cares? Seriously. Who cares? Barry, you do realize that you came to Earth 2 to save someone's life, right? Put your bullshit personal hang-ups on hold, excuse yourself from these people, go back to the police records, you dumb fuck! They spent almost the entire episode on this shit! Why the hell should we even care about the relationship between Earth 2 Barry and Iris, or Earth 2 Barry and Earth 2 Joe? I don't even care about his relationship with Earth 1 Iris! Why are we spending so much time on this family melodrama when they went over there to stop Zoom and save Jesse Quick? Wells tells Barry that these people should be nothing to him because they're Earth 2 versions and not the people he remembers. But Barry's like, fuck that, they're my family, so I'm gonna forget about our mission, forget about your daughter who's still being held hostage by a superpowered madman, and I'm gonna go do stuff with them. And the really inane part is that I'm pretty sure we were supposed to be agreeing with Barry. even though Wells was the only one who's talking sense here. Fuck's sake. And it's not like Barry can do anything for Earth 2 Joe except be there when he dies. Speaking of which, why the hell did that happen? Why did he die? Where was his injury? The guy takes a nuclear fireball in the chest, and he's not burned, he's not even singed. Shouldn't he look really fucked up? Shouldn't he have, like, horrible burns all over his body? What the hell happened there? Why is he dying? He looked perfectly fine. I mean, he was well enough to wake up and have a brief conversation. He couldn't have been hurt that badly. Anyway, Barry spends most of the episode not giving a shit about Wells' daughter, so he can do stuff with Iris and find out why Earth 2 Joe doesn't like him, as if that has any relevance to anything that's going on. The Jesse plot, which I remind you was the whole reason they went to Earth 2 in the first place, was pretty much forgotten about until the last scene because Barry can't get his priorities straight. He never even got around to searching the records for Zoom in the first place, for God's sake. I mean... He never even did the one thing that he replaced his doppelganger to do. God damn it. And the worst part about this is that it takes time away from the stuff that would have been so much more interesting and would have made this episode so much better. We meet Earth 2 Cisco, who is 1, a villain, 2, way more powerful than our Cisco, and 3, working for Zoom. That's really cool. That's using the Earth 2 concept to its full potential. I wanted to spend a lot more time with this Cisco and learn more about him, but we only get one scene with him and then he's immediately killed off. What a fucking waste. You spend the whole episode with Barry farting around with Earth 2 Iris, not doing anything interesting, and then you kill off Cisco, who was really cool? What a bunch of bullshit! Better used were Killer Frost and Deathstorm. This was good stuff here. I really like the makeup job on Killer Frost. You know, she's all like super pale and pasty and shit, and with the different hair. I think they actually changed her eyes too. Maybe they gave her some contacts or something. She looks like a cold person, no pun intended. Good job with that. Her powers were a little underwhelming, though. It didn't seem like she could do anything that the Weather Wizard couldn't do, but I really like Danielle Panabaker here. At least they kept her alive. That's good. Meanwhile, back on Earth 1, Geomancer attacks. He's a new one. So Jay Garrick has to take the velocity drug so he can stop him. Unfortunately, since Barry isn't there, Jay has to take over in the fighting like an idiot category, so... you can imagine how this went. One would think that since the effect of the drug is only temporary, that Jay would want to end this fight as quickly as possible. Like Barry did last week when he defeated Tar Pit. Remember how that worked really well? When he didn't waste any time, he just attacked him straight away and it worked. You'd think Jay would want to try that approach, but no, he doesn't do that. Because instead of speeding right into him and knocking him out first thing, Jay decides to stand still and try talking to him. Because that always works out so well when Barry does it, right? Oh wait, no it doesn't. For fuck's sake. So yeah, to the shock of no one, Geomancer gets away. Nicely done, Jay Garrick. Oh, but the two Flashes weren't alone in the idiot category this week. Then there's Earth 2 Iris and Floyd Loughton, who decide to confront Deathstorm and Killer Frost by themselves, without even thinking to call for backup. So, there's no metahuman task force on Earth 2, apparently. I question why, but whatever. Earth 2 is different. I guess it's not important. Although... it does seem like metahuman criminals exist, on Earth 2, so you'd think they would have gotten into the habit of calling for backup, and lots of it every time one of these people shows up, but I guess not. So yeah, that blows up in their faces. Although it does give us one of the few genuinely entertaining moments of the episode when Loughton is screaming defiantly, emptying his gun at at everybody who is like 10 feet away and completely misses with every shot. That was funny. If there had been more moments like that, I might have been more forgiving of this episode. Then Zoom shows up, locks Barry in a cage, and he meets Jesse, and the story finally gets back on track right when the episode ends. So we spent 90% of the episode dealing with stuff that had nothing to do with why they went to Earth 2 in the first place, spending way too much time on uninteresting, unimportant shit, and squandering all the real potential of this situation, only to leave us on a cliffhanger promising that they'll get back to business next week. If I had to guess, I would say that some of this was to introduce us to Killer Frost, who I really hope is going to come back to Earth 1 with them. And the stuff with her and Deathstorm was fun, but all the family melodrama, jeez, what a waste of time that was. Good lord. I think what happened here is that the writers took a story that probably could have been done in one tight episode and stretched it into a two-parter, but then realized they didn't have enough story to justify that, so to fill time, they wrote a bunch of new scenes and came up with this pointless subplot of Barry forgetting all about the mission so he can hang around with Earth 2 Iris and Joe while Jesse Quick rots in a cage somewhere. Off screen. Because spending more time with supervillain Cisco wouldn't have been nearly as interesting as finding out why Earth 2 Joe and Barry don't like each other, right? One thing I did like was Barry talking to his mom on the phone. Granted, at this point in the show, I'm really like, dude, she's been dead 15 years, get the fuck over it already. But that moment was nice, though ill-timed. If it had happened in the police station, like he took a minute to call her just to hear her voice while he was searching through the police files in the lab, and then got right back to work searching for Zoom, I would have been fine with that. Because it would have just been one moment that Barry allowed himself before resuming hero business. Unfortunately, the way they do it, it comes right in the middle of Barry wasting a whole shitload of time with Iris. You're not going to accomplish anything by going home with Iris for the night and then going to see Joe at a nightclub, Barry. Tell them you forgot something at the lab and go search the files for Zoom, you stupid schmuck. You got a mission here. You're trying to save someone's life. That's the whole reason you decided to impersonate your Earth 2 self in the first place. This episode was really frustrating. There's so much potential in this idea of our characters going to a parallel Earth and meeting different versions of the people they know. The problem is they were focusing on all the wrong things. The most interesting stuff here was evil Cisco, but he got completely shortchanged because they had Barry spending so much time with Earth 2 Iris, who was by far the most boring thing about this whole situation. Killer Frost, Deathstorm, they got a fair amount of time, though that was good. But for the most part, the priorities of this episode were all screwed up. If they'd focused on Reverb, Killer Frost, Deathstorm, and how all that tied into rescuing Jesse Quick, I think they would have had a great episode here. Instead, they have Barry forgetting all about rescuing Jesse so he can focus on his personal bullshit, and then that just happens to tie into rescuing Jesse at the very end through the magic of plot convenience. So yeah, I had a lot of problems with this one. And before anyone brings it up, yes, I did see the Supergirl Easter egg, and I'm not that excited about it. If they could fuck things up this badly just dealing with the Flash stuff, I don't see what visiting whatever Earth Supergirl lives on is going to add to this. But who knows, maybe if the Supergirl writers handle that, the results might be better. Oh, man. See, honestly, based on the timeline stuff, this episode barely avoided the point where next week's Flash and Arrow episodes not being in the distorted timeline still makes sense. Was that an LOT question? Probably. I think this episode should stop the Jay Garrick is Zoom theory. When Zoom runs off with Barry in the next episode, we see Caitlin patching up Garrick. He can't be in two places at once. Haven't we seen Zoom and Jay Garrick in the same place already? Wasn't there a scene like that? Or am I remembering wrong? Not sure. I would hope it would be something more unpredictable than the Jay Garrick, though. Wow, that would be kind of lame. Hunter Zolomon is Zoom, but Jay is Earth 2 Hunter Zolomon. Same way that Caitlin is our version of Killer Frost. That's interesting. Hadn't thought of that. Any guesses on who the man in the metal mask was in Zoom's lair, along with Barry and Jesse? Oh, I have no idea. Another metahuman, maybe? Someone from the comics, maybe. I don't read the Flash comics. Yeah, I've got no idea. I always thought they would multiverse the Supergirl Flash crossover, but I hope it happens on Earth 1. I have seen Man of Steel die. Give them a chance to bring the Superman into the Superman Arrowverse. Yeah, the only problem I have with that is if Supergirl exists in the Arrowverse, that would mean that Superman exists in the Arrowverse, and he's never been mentioned. That Men of Steel thing was the closest thing I've gotten to a Superman reference. If he existed in this world, you'd think they would have mentioned him by now, or made some kind of reference to him. So yeah, I hope they multiverse it, really. The episode solves the problem with that newspaper handily enough. I mean, the newspaper from the future written by Iris as Barry's wife? Not necessarily. Because she's a cop in Earth 2, not a journalist. Plus, why would the Reverse Flash have a newspaper from another dimension? Like a parallel Earth. That was before the multiverse became a thing. I don't know, they could probably time travel bullshit a way around that, I guess. Who knows? Here's the trouble with the plan, having Barry impersonate his Earth 2 doppelganger to get the police records. Why not have the gang simply ask Earth 2 Barry if the police had anything? They could have done that. Well, of course, they would have had to waste time explaining the whole parallel Earths thing to his doppelganger. That would have cost them time. Of course, Barry ended up wasting a lot of time anyway. So that could have been a better use of their time, yeah. I still don't know why he didn't just speed right into the police station and check the records in like 2 seconds. So he could have easily done that. Why was that not an option? She wanted to be a reporter in that world, but stopped where she is married to Barry, so Iris wrote that newspaper after becoming a reporter again. Maybe. I still think it's more likely that was from the future, though. In ways, doesn't the overall character of Barry supposed to be flawed, or am I wrong? Oh, no. Barry's supposed to be a flawed person. I would want him to be a flawed person. The problem is, there's a big difference between being flawed and being an idiot who never learns anything. Okay, Oliver is a good example of a flawed lead character. Barry is the other one. He's the other kind. I've pointed out many times now how Barry just acts like an idiot constantly and makes the same mistakes over and over again without ever learning anything from them. That's the issue I have with Barry. Flaws are good. Not learning anything from your flaws, that's bad. I've always liked shows like this. Buffy, Hercules, and Superman all did episodes like this. Yeah. Alright, I think Buffy certainly handled it better than this did. Barry's relationships are about as screwed up as any relationships in the awful Twilight series. Yep, I went there. Wow. Comparing this to Twilight, huh? I don't know if it's that bad. Joe in Earth 2 is actually Amazing Man. We didn't get to see it, but he's more durable than normal. He still got killed, though, because radiation is his one weakness. So Joe is a superhero? Is that what it's like in the comics? Because they didn't... I don't think that's a thing on the show. The Iris West thing was a huge plot hole since the writers stepped away from it, so they needed a way to deal with it somehow. Did you notice that 3 of the names on that phone, Bruce, Diana, and Hal? No, I didn't notice that. Must have been like a split-second thing. Damn, I wish I had noticed that. I actually like the Twilight series, but I like romance novels, so what is. Dude, I'm not even going to touch that one. May not be popular, but I think Barry being married to Iris on Earth 2 will renew his feelings for her on Earth 1. Yeah. God. Yeah, probably. God, I really hope they don't go in that direction. But they couldn't even wait a couple episodes, could they? I have no idea why they introduced Reverb to kill him in minutes later. That makes no sense. I'd call it a fake out if I thought the writers were good enough to pull that off. Yeah, what a waste of potential that was. Yeah, this Cisco is a bad guy, and he's like super powerful. So powerful that he's got Firestorm and Killer Frost working under him. And we only get to spend a couple of minutes with him before he gets killed off. Dude, keep that guy around. Why are you getting rid of him so quickly? That's ridiculous. Yeah, the implications of the fact that Earth 2 Barry basically missed such an important day in his life, the day his hated father-in-law both dies and starts to like him again, is kind of disturbing. Who was that dude in the mask with Jesse Quick? Did anyone ever ID him? Yeah, I got no clue. Don't know who he is. At the very least, it's yet more evidence of our heroes messing up people's lives outside of their own time and continuity. Yep. Yeah, the Legends of Tomorrow cast don't have a monopoly on that stuff. Of course, one might argue that Joe would have died anyway. If Barry hadn't shown up. Just seen Deadpool. How can Fox produce this and then crap like Four Stick? Fox is bipolar. Okay, so saying Deadpool was good. All right, good to know. Gotta try to see that this weekend. No spoilers, please. If that creeps you out, the many worlds thing leads to all kinds of crazy shit like that. It basically makes physics shit itself. Yeah, it's probably best if we don't think about the many worlds idea too much. Get a feeling it would just give us all headaches. Many worlds is crazy. In one universe, you're a woman. In another, you were never born because your parents never meet. In another, you're Chinese because the Mongol Empire rules the world. Basically, any conscious choice that had more than one possible outcome has a universe unto itself. Alright. I enjoy The Flash, it's awesome, but why in the hell is it mostly about Barry Allen impressing Iris? Probably because it's a CW show. But he's saving the day from the villains, which is awesome, and it's such a great show. Yeah, the whole Barry Iris thing was one of the big elements of the first season that just didn't work. And I was really hopeful that the writers had realized that, because there's been very little of that stuff in season 2. And then we got the introduction of Patty, who was such a better match for Barry, and so much more chemistry. They were so much more enjoyable together, and the relationship was really fun. So of course they had to get rid of that. And now it's right back to teasing the Iris thing again. Christ, why? No, but I agree with you. If they focused more on Barry fighting supervillains and less teasing relationship crap with Iris, I think the show would be better. No things being vastly different between our worlds. I get it. It's the recent Arrowverse trend of our heroes utterly fucking up people's lives outside of their own lane that's making me side-eye things. Being sarcastic about Joe being Amazing Man. I was talking about Joe dying but having no physical injuries. Okay. I'll agree with this, though. The villains were honestly the coolest part of the episode. Zoom killing them was a shame. Oh, hell yeah. Anyway, if I were Zoom and getting Barry out of the way was my main objective as opposed to actually stealing his speed, I wouldn't have captured Barry and put him next to Jesse. Yeah, shouldn't Barry just be able to vibrate through that cage? Because he can do that now. I don't know. Him being distracted by basically trying to live in his doppelganger's place because Joe and Iris are his family would be enough of a distraction that a bit of careful maneuvering would basically make him a non-factor. You are absolutely right. Barry is way too easily distracted. Okay. Moving on to Arrow. Season 4, Episode 13, Sins of the Father. Nyssa has a cure for Thea, but before she gives it to him, she wants Oliver to kill Malcolm Merlyn, who has a problem with that. Laurel convinces Nyssa to compromise, but Malcolm still won't budge. It all builds up to a staged trial by combat where Oliver takes Nyssa's place, pretends to kill Malcolm, allowing Nyssa to dissolve the League before Malcolm can reveal that he's not dead after all. So Thea is cured, but Malcolm is so pissed off about Oliver pulling a fast one on him that he goes to Damien Dark and tells him about Oliver's son. Because Malcolm Merlyn is a huge dick. Also, Felicity has her dad arrested. Which she probably should have done immediately, but whatever. There's a really strong episode hiding in here. The only problem is there are several things you have to take with a big grain of salt in order to get to it. Number one, I still don't know why they don't just call John Constantine to help them with Thea. All it needed was one line of explanation for why they couldn't do this, but since we don't get that, it remains a big fucking plot hole. Number two, all episode long, Nyssa is dangling that magical healing MacGuffin in front of Oliver as an incentive for him to kill Malcolm Merlyn. But if Oliver was so desperate to not only save Thea, but do it without killing anyone, there were a couple of scenes here where he probably just could have beaten up Nyssa and taken the damn thing. I mean, not a really nice thing to do, but hey, he's desperate. I mean, what's to stop him, really? Her League of Assassins bodyguards? I think we've established by now that those guys are pretty worthless. So I'm not really sure why this wasn't an option. Number three, Oliver is doing this because he doesn't want to break his no-kill rule. Yes, but more than that, what he uses for justification is that regardless of what Merlin has done and all the crimes he's committed and people he's killed, he's still Thea's father. And Oliver doesn't want to kill him and destroy the chance, however small it might be, of Thea one day having some kind of normal relationship with her dad. Considering the way Oliver lost his own father, you can believe that, while this might not be a great reason, at least it would make sense to him. The only problem is that, like I said, Merlin's a very bad man, responsible for very bad stuff. Thea's not especially close with him and doesn't seem to have any desire to be. And even in the event that she did someday have some kind of normal relationship with him, or whatever passes for normal for these people, how in the world is that a good thing? If I'm Oliver, I'm happy if Thea has no contact with this guy for the rest of her life. And if the only way to save Thea's life is killing him, I think Thea would understand. I mean, he did set her up as a puppet to kill one of her friends once upon a time, remember? Now, if you can get past that stuff, you've got a pretty deep episode here, actually. Oliver has a chance to save his sister, and all he has to do is rid the world of a man it probably would be better off without. A man who has caused him and his family and friends a whole lot of suffering, and the only thing stopping him from doing this is his desire to be a better person and not take away one of the only family members his sister has left, even if said family member gets left off the Christmas card list every year. Now, if I was in Oliver's shoes, I probably would have just killed the bastard. But for him, this is enough to leave no stone unturned in his attempts to find another way. It's a really good moral dilemma, even if you have to stretch your suspension of disbelief a little bit in order to get there. And I think it worked very well for the most part and felt true to the characters. That said, I didn't buy Merlin being dead for a second. I was calling that fake out, the second it happened. But it didn't take away from the story itself, which managed to accomplish everything it wanted to with a seemingly happy resolution, but with the good guys still paying a price at the end. And that was all well done. Also, the B-plot was really nice. I really appreciated how they narrowly avoided Felicity taking a bunch of stupid pills here when her father wants back in her life. Now, I can accept that Felicity would really, really want to believe that she could trust her dad, maybe even enough to give him some small allowances in terms of how trustworthy he really is. What I would not accept is Felicity being so blinded by this and so naive that she forgets to use her head. Because she's supposed to be the smart one, remember? That's why I was really happy with how this went down. Felicity gives him a shot, gives him a chance to prove that he's not a piece of shit, but she makes sure to cover her ass if he proves otherwise. So she sets a trap, and all he had to do to not fall into it was be the person she was hoping he would be, but turns out he wasn't. And once she sees that, she immediately turns him in. So Felicity is allowed to be human, giving this guy a little bit of leeway when just last week he used Roy as a puppet in his efforts to blow up the internet. Just go with it. But she doesn't let that make her into a complete idiot. She still ends up doing the smart thing. Pretty soon her brain kicks in and she realizes that, yeah, this is a bad guy. So Felicity does the smart thing here, and in a shared universe where Barry Allen does stuff that insults the audience's intelligence on an almost weekly basis, it's always worth pointing out when the opposite happens. I'm going to be generous to this one. There's a strong episode buried in here. You just have to do a little digging to get to it. If you can do that, you'll find some pretty compelling stuff, actually. So I was willing to overlook that and focus on the positives with this installment. This was a good episode. A couple observations I forgot to make last week as it relates to Arrow. One, when Felicity asks why Oliver always manages to blame himself for everything, my immediate reaction was because you guys taught him that. Two, before Calculator was revealed as Felicity's dad, he looks and sounds so familiar to Wells that I honestly thought he was an older relative of the guy Wells. As for this episode, I'm not really sure who called it that Nyssa would have spite for Thea physically being Sarah's killer, but hey, you called it. As for Merlin, he just ascended to #1 most despicable heel on the show with his conduct this episode. I don't know about evil, but they certainly provided enough evidence that Noah's shady and can't be trusted. Noah? Was that Calculator? I don't know. But yeah. Merlin claims to love Thea, but he's still a power-hungry asshole. And he did end up risking Thea's life in order to hold on to his position as Ra's al Ghul. So yeah, I'm not terribly sympathetic to him. And putting an innocent kid in danger at the end, that's fucked up. Yeah, Merlin is shooting to the top of my list of people who might be the guy that Felicity was talking about in the flash forward. You know, that guy that Oliver needs to kill. You can probably add, we can definitely add Merlin to that list now. It's probably the intention. Almost as big of a question as who is in the grave is who puts that person in the grave. Right now, Damien Dark, Malcolm Merlin, Calculator, and Baron Ryder are all suspects. Yeah, I like that. I think before we all assumed it was Damien, but now there's several people that it might be. I think you probably need to keep Andy on that list too, just to keep all our options open. They should have touched more on how Oliver is going to marry Felicity when he's still married to Nyssa. Well, by the laws of the League of Assassins, he's married to Nyssa. I don't know if that's... I don't know if there was ever actually a legally binding marriage certificate when him and Nyssa tied the knot. Pretty sure he could still marry Felicity and it would hold up in court. I was amazed at what terrible shots the League mooks were, including Nyssa. You're amazed that the League of Assassins suck at fighting? Dude, how long have we been talking about this? The League of Assassins are worthless. We learned that last season. They suck at everything. They attack the good guys en masse, they get their asses kicked. They try to fight someone, they get their asses kicked. It doesn't matter. They suck. All the time. Of course they couldn't hit anything. They never hit anything. If Calculator was smart enough to figure out Felicity's secret, shouldn't he have been able to figure out who Green Arrow and his crew were? Possibly. Maybe if he was like piggybacking on their signal, he could have. I think he could have deduced Felicity's identity that way. But I think he probably has suspicions about who Team Arrow are. I think there's enough. I can accept that he doesn't know exactly who they are. He probably has suspicions though. When I was 12 at summer camp, we did archery, and I could hit targets that far away. It was like 10 feet for Christ's sake. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The League of Assassins suck. I have no idea if Calculator is actually evil or not. They have not provided enough evidence one way or the other, which is odd. Oh, I think he's probably evil. I mean, he did want to blow up the internet. Just go with it. Plus, he was trying to steal information from Palmer Tech. Maybe if he's not a villain, he's still not a good guy. Usually the bad guys are more clearly defined, like Merlin and Slade. I think he was defined clearly enough. I don't know about evil, but they certainly provided enough evidence that he's shady and can't be trusted. Yeah. I'm still stunned that they didn't just kill Nissa's men and grab the cure. They've taken out that number of League assholes by accident before. Well, Oliver doesn't want to kill people anymore, but yeah, I mean, if it came right down to it, they probably could have just overpowered those guys and taken the cure by force. It's not like the League of Assassins could stop them. Might as well just dress all those guys in big red shirts. Cutler. Baron Ryder's assistant. Has he appeared in anything outside of a flashback? Oh, Baron Ryder's that guy. Okay. No, only been in the flashback so far. But so was Deathstroke for the first season and a half. You know. Oliver has killed League goons by accident. Waking up in the morning, he opens his eyes and 6 dead League guys are dead at the foot of his bed. Just kill them and take the cure. I was the one who called Nyssa having spite over Sarah's death. It seems like a Nyssa thing to do. I don't think she was terribly spiteful about that. I mean, she brought it up that Sarah was the one who killed Thea. Thea was the one who killed Sarah, rather. But then Laurel's like, you and I both know that wasn't her fault. And she's like, I think she remembered it. I don't think she really... She might have been using that as an excuse, but I don't know. That was not at the root of what was bothering her. I didn't really feel like a lot of spite in that moment. All right. Making good time here. Agent Carter. Season 2, Episode 5, The Atomic Job. Peggy and Sousa put a team together to break into a Roxxon facility to steal a nuke before Whitney Frost can get her hands on it, which ends with Peggy falling off a ledge and getting impaled. Ouch. Meanwhile, Sousa manages to propose to Violet, who then finds out that he's still carrying a torch for Peggy, and Whitney Frost is getting more and more murder-happy. And Peggy finally got her ass kicked by someone. I must admit I really liked that. Okay, this was something different. I don't know if the story was advanced all that much, but from a pure entertainment standpoint, this episode had a lot more going on than a lot of the recent ones. This might have been one of the funniest episodes of Agent Carter to date, actually. And if I could say that about an episode where Howard Stark doesn't even appear, they must have done something right. Yeah, that's the best thing you can say about this episode is how funny it was. There were some pretty great bits here, like Peggy trying to get the key to the Roxxon facility and having to wipe the guy's memory over and over as he keeps waking up while she's searching him. That poor bastard is going to wind up with a brain tumor or something. And then this whole mission where they have to break into Roxxon, there were a lot of genuine laughs here. You know, they have to do this off the books, so they can't put their best people on it. So instead, they assemble a crack team of the one-legged man, Jarvis, the nerdy lab guy, and Rose the receptionist. Rose, who turns out to be one of the most competent people, surprisingly enough. They had a lot of fun with this idea. In fact, I think they were intentionally poking fun at certain spy movies and like Ocean's 11 and stuff like that. Like when the team assembles and they're doing that cliched slow-mo, badass power walk, and then the guy falls over himself, and Jarvis remembers that he actually left, parked the car around the corner, and he has to go get the car while the rest of them just stand there awkwardly. That shit was funny. There was a lot of stuff like that in this episode, and it worked so much better than if they played it straight. It makes me wish they'd take this approach more often, because certain sequences they've done, like Peggy avoiding detection at the arena club by hiding under the table, probably would have been a lot more effective if they'd been played for laughs like this was. Something else I really appreciated about this was Peggy finally losing a fight. This is an issue I've had with the show at times, that as a fighter, Peggy has been pretty much untouchable. So much so that the only people who you'd think would be a match for her, i.e. Dottie, still end up getting beaten by her more quickly than they should. And that drains out some of the excitement, because if you think nobody can beat Peggy, then there's not a lot of tension there when she goes into battle. Having Peggy lose a fight or having to struggle more to win fights is not a bad thing. It makes you want to rally behind her more. And that's why I was really happy to see Peggy punch Whitney Frost in the face, only for Whitney to completely no-sell it. I mean, yeah, she's superpowered now, which is kind of cheating, but I'll take it. Because I do take a certain amount of satisfaction in watching Peggy get her ass kicked for a change. You know, that sounds like a mean thing to say, but it means that Peggy is the underdog all of a sudden, which makes her, at least for me, a lot easier to root for. You know, she even gets grievously injured in this fight, too, showing that Peggy is, in fact, as frail as any other human and can get hurt just like everybody else. It seems like a small thing, but again, she's usually so unstoppable that things like that mean something. This did, however, lead to my gripe with this episode. Peggy falls off the ledge, probably a good 10-15 feet, if not more, and gets impaled on a rebar pole. I feel like that should have done a lot more damage than it did. Anyone else gets impaled like that, they're down. Right? They're down for a while. They're going to need several doctors. But Peggy doesn't even need a hospital. They just drop her on the couch and Violet patches her up. By the end of the episode, she seems okay. She's trying to sit up and everything. I had some trouble with that. It's okay if Peggy needs medical attention, writers. That doesn't make her any less of an agent. I really enjoyed the episode overall, but that part was like, really? She recovers that quickly? That's all the damage it did? She doesn't need emergency surgery or anything? I guess. Maybe it was a choice by the writers to do it that way. Maybe they thought it was pointless to tease viewers that she might die because we all know that she won't. And that's always going to be one of the issues this show faces. The fact that it is a prequel, so we know Peggy's not going to die. We know Jarvis lives long enough to meet Tony. We know Howard Stark doesn't die until decades later, after he helps form S.H.I.E.L.D. And we know that nuke they're trying to disarm is probably not going to go off. But these are things you can forgive if the episode is at least entertaining, and this was entertaining. I never thought Peggy was going to die, but I was laughing a lot, and I liked seeing her lose a fight. It made her more relatable to me. It also presents an interesting new obstacle for Peggy, because this is a villain that she can't necessarily defeat with her go-to tactic of punching everything until it stops moving. You know, she's going to have to beat Madame Mask a different way, and I like that. So, despite Peggy apparently having a healing factor on par with Wolverine's, I still like this episode. You know, the comedy was great. I really enjoyed the way they poked fun at a lot of the spy movie tropes. Having Jarvis disarm a nuke, and having Rose the receptionist of all people turning out to be a badass fighter, how can you not laugh at the sheer ridiculousness of all that? I mean, sure, it would have been complete nonsense if they played it serious, but they didn't. This episode was intended to be a lighthearted spy comedy up until the moment at the end when the switch flips and they remind you that the show is really a drama when Peggy gets a hole put in her. I think that was the intention the whole time, that they distract you with all the comedy stuff and get you to let your guard down so you don't see it coming when the horrifying, traumatic thing happens. Well done on that. Oh, and next week, Dottie is back. Yay! It's not Angie, but it's something. Agent Carter may not get a third season. Apparently, Haley Atwell is being cast in a new series, and with Marvel's Most Wanted coming, nothing is looking good for the show. What I read is that if the show goes to series and Agent Carter gets a third season, that they'll work out the schedules. Agent Carter only does like Agent Carter is only a mid-season break series, so if Conviction, the name of this new show, if that was doing like sort of a truncated season as well, they could probably find a way to make it work. Not sure how. I honestly forgot Agent Carter happened this week. Did you see it? You might have actually liked this one. The angle next week with Peggy and Dottie team up looks awesome, but I have a fear Whitney may kill Dottie at the end. Oh, she better not. God damn it. Dottie is way too good of a villain. They need to keep her around. So I glanced through this episode while my brother was watching and gonna make a comment. Peggy thinking that Daniel, that's his name, was being a misogynistic tool because he was worried about Rose being able to handle herself the same way a non-wrestling fan would question Kevin Steen's athleticism at first sight kind of irked me a bit. Well, I don't think she considered him misogynistic. He was concerned for Rose's safety. He wasn't doing it to be an asshole or anything. He didn't want to put someone who might get hurt in harm's way. That's Sousa. He's maybe there is a little bit of chauvinism on his part, but it doesn't come from a mean-spirited place in his case. It comes from maybe a more traditional viewpoint of women, in that they're something that need to be they're people who need to be protected, and he's come around on that a lot. I think it's still a part of him, though. It's still an instinct of his to not want women to be put in dangerous situations just because he feels the need to protect them. He's not an asshole about it. That's the thing. More competent team than Legends of Tomorrow. Not a compliment. Well, they could have fucked up a whole lot and still have been more competent than the Yellow Tea team. I'm just saying. Wouldn't take much for them to be a better team than that. The whole sequence with Peggy zapping that chauvinistic bastard repeatedly with a neuralizer was hilarious. Yeah, that was pretty good. If Agent Carter doesn't get at least one 22-episode season, it'll be a shame. I would love to see what they could do with that much storytelling time. I don't know. I think it would be nice if they got a full-length season. I don't think it's entirely necessary. I think the format for Agent Carter works well as a mid-season break series. I think they told the story they needed to tell in season 1 in that amount of time pretty well. It wasn't perfect, but I don't think they needed any more episodes. Jury's still out on season 2, but I don't think it needs a 22-episode season, honestly. Plus, I would like to see a Carter Shield crossover. Granted, that would mean time travel, but for a one-and-done episode, I think Marvel could pull it off. I had that thought, too. There was one idea I had, I think, last season, where I thought it would be a really cool thing if Agent Carter Season 1 ended on a cliffhanger with a package arriving at Peggy's apartment, and she opens it, and it's some kind of like old-timey video player, or whatever, that looks kind of strangely futuristic. So she turns it on, and then Coulson appears on the screen. He's like, Agent Carter, you don't know me, but the fates of thousands of people rest in your hands or something like that. He says, "My name is Phil Coulson. I need you to listen to me very carefully." And then it just cuts to black. It's like, to be continued next season. I thought it would have been really cool if they'd done something like that. But I mean, they could do a crossover, sort of. I mean, Peggy is still alive in present day. Maybe there could be some kind of unsolved SSR case that we see in Carter that is left kind of unresolved, and then they do an episode when Shield comes back, where they're on a mission and something happens to tie into that, so they have to go and visit Peggy in the nursing home. They could do that. And they couldn't have anyone from Shield showing up on in Carter. They wouldn't be alive yet, but I think they could pull it off without too much trouble. I'm perfectly fine with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. getting to be the show with the long seasons anyway. So am I. Yeah, they've got more storytelling fuel on that show. Peggy thinks everyone is a misogynist because, like most feminists, she doesn't know what the word means and uses it to describe anything she doesn't like. I think she's a little bit defensive about that. I wouldn't go so far to say she calls everyone she doesn't like a misogynist. I'm pretty sure she doesn't consider Sousa a misogynist. Just a guy who's a little overly protective. I don't think that's a bad thing to be. And plus, he comes around on that pretty quickly. Yeah, he's worried about putting Rose in the field. Then he sees, well, she can handle herself. Oh, okay, let's put her on the team then. And that's the end of it. I think his first instinct is to protect the woman that he's concerned about. Then he sees, oh no, she doesn't need to be protected. Okay, and then they put her on the team, and that's that. Now, Sousa's reasonable. I don't think Peggy would go so far as to call him a misogynist. So basically, Peggy is a feminist John Cena. Even when she loses decisively or takes the beating of a lifetime, she naturally undersells it. Yeah, pretty much. I hadn't made that connection yet, but yeah, that's pretty much exactly what Peggy does. She falls off a ledge and gets impaled. And she's pretty much okay by the end of the episode. Well, not okay, but she's starting to shrug it off. I mean, they show previews for the next episode. She's already on her feet and walking around. I mean, it's okay if she has to take a load off for a while. Oh man, you might as well just have her get neck surgery and then go back to work immediately after. She's Jane Cena. You're right. Peggy's more like Triple H in that she buries anyone who fights her and doesn't know how to self to save her life. Yeah, there's a little bit of Triple H in there, isn't there? I am for ABC having one big night with Carter, Shield, and Most Wanted all on the same night. You know, I often wonder why they haven't gotten a really appropriate lead-in for Shield. I mean, they have it at 9 o'clock, following two family comedies. Yeah, I mean, I like Fresh Off the Boat, and I love the Muppets, but pairing them with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it just doesn't. It's a really awkward fit. If they could have gotten their feet moving on finding another Marvel show, or developing another Marvel show to pair with S.H.I.E.L.D., I think that would have been so much more appropriate. So that's why I'm really rooting for Marvel's Most Wanted to take off, because that would do it. You get 2 Marvel spy-type shows back-to-back. That works. It's a better pairing than Fresh Off the Boat. And God knows what else is going to wind up as a lead-in for S.H.I.E.L.D. And they've had some abysmal lead-ins in the past with these shitty comedies. Remember Manhattan Love Story? I believe that was, at one point, before it got canceled, it was like the lowest-rated show on network television. Oh, no, they literally could not have had a worse lead-in. But yeah, I'm rooting for Marvel's Most Wanted to be a hit. I don't know if they'd put it at 10, but I mean, 3 hours of Marvel shows, that'd be cool. But yeah, I think they're going to keep Carter as like a mid-season show. The only thing I distinctly remember about this episode of Carter is the giant spacious air vent that can fit 6 people and a dog. Yeah, that was a really big... That was the biggest air vent I've ever seen in my life. I think I mentioned that on Twitter during the show, actually. It's like, holy... Is there a reason why the air vent is that fucking big? Big enough for 2 people to crawl through it side by side? Why is the air vent that big? Tell that to Peggy. She's the one who compared him to Thompson in that moment. Yeah, about... I don't think she meant that maliciously, though. And she didn't mean imply... And I think she knows that Sousa, there was no malicious intent in Sousa not wanting to put Rose in the field. I mean, at first glance, take a look at Rose. Does she look like a field agent to you? And it didn't take much convincing on his part. What did you think of the Batman v Superman final trailer? I'm excited for the movie. I don't really know what else to say about it. The action looks great. Of course, if Zack Snyder, Zack Snyder tends to be able to do that stuff pretty well. I'm reserving judgment on a lot of it. I'm cautiously optimistic about Batfleck at this point. Don't know what else to say except I'm really looking forward to the movie. Still don't think they need to put Doomsday in there. I said a while ago, I feel sorry for Thompson because he's the enemy simply because he's not falling in lockstep with Peggy Carter. No, he's the enemy because he's a self-serving prick who is more than willing to screw other people over to advance his own career. Him not worshipping at the altar of Peggy Carter is also one of the reasons, but it's not the only one. Okay, I'll admit that repeated knockout of the corrupt corporate playboy scene was kind of funny. Now, and every team I've noticed in the MCU so far is infinitely more competent than Legends of Tomorrow, so that's not an accomplishment. It shouldn't be much of an accomplishment. It should go without saying. The LOT team sucks. She treats everyone like that. You're either with her or you're a sexist, racist shitlord. She's hipster glasses and a blog away from Lacey Green. Being Lacey Green. Okay, well, we're probably not going to agree on this one, so let's just leave it at that. The gang I rolled with in 6th grade was more competent than Legends. I just saw the Wyatt vignette with the theme Evil Ways while AJ is on the roster on SmackDown tonight. Okay. Is there a? Do you have a question? Just got back from Deadpool. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Maybe a Fox movie, but it felt like a Marvel Studio one. Oh, good. Yeah, that's tracking really well. A lot of positive buzz about Deadpool. So I'm excited to see that one. Exactly. Rose doesn't look like a field agent until you see her in action, hence why I compared her to Kevin Steen. Okay. Daisy and May going back and having to deal with a guy like Jack Thompson would be interesting, though. Oh, hell yeah. Plus, they wouldn't have to put up with his bullshit. You're coming from the time period they're from. It would be really interesting to see him try that chauvinistic stuff with May. She wouldn't even try to make nice like Peggy does. She'd just knock him on his ass. Bobby would too. That'd be funny. I think it would be a lot funnier to see Thompson be brought to the future and just be dropped in the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. environment. Put him in a room with Daisy, see how that works out. Oh, and Bobby too. Yeah. Oh yeah, Bobby. Yeah. All right, sorry. What, they let women have superpowers in this time period? What the hell happened to the world? I want to go back to the 1940s. Do you find it ironic that Evil Ways was used for the Wyatt vignette while AJ is the company? Is how I should have. Well, AJ is the company? What? I don't know. I don't watch SmackDown. I haven't seen the Wyatt vignette. And honestly, I don't really care that much about what the Wyatts do anymore because they've completely fucked up that whole faction. They've ruined Bray Wyatt. I don't take him seriously with anything he says or does anymore. He's the guy who talks a big game and then doesn't deliver and always loses the big matches. So Evil Ways, I don't Evil Ways vignette, I haven't seen it. And not sure what AJ's up to, although I heard he lost to Chris Jericho. So AJ lost to the guy who loses to everybody. That's not a good sign. Daisy would probably shake him to the ground with her power and leave him flattened and rock in 3 seconds. Yeah. Probably. They let women have superpowers as if superpowers could make arbitrary decisions about who they go to. Yes, I know. I was making a joke. Okay, I'll give it another minute. See if we get any more questions. And all right. I could easily see someone making that sort of retort to him making that comment, though. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Okay, I think that will about do it. Just FYI, Agent Carter is going to be 2 hours next week. So it's going to be airing against The Flash. I won't be able to watch both. And I don't have a DVR, actually, so if I don't manage to find one of them online, I'm only going to be able to cover one of those shows next week. I think I'll probably do Carter just because, it's easier than covering Flash and then the second half of an episode that I didn't see. So, in the event that I can't watch both shows, I'll probably just cover both episodes of Carter and then move The Flash to next week, and then do 2 episodes of The Flash the following week. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that happens when it happens. Is there anything else? I think that's about it. But yeah. Wow, we're at the halfway point with Carter already. Wow, the season's going by fast. Wow, Shield comes back next month. Huh. Hiatus hasn't seemed as long as the last one. Weird. Okay, I think that, well, we got a couple more questions here. Favorite snack? I don't know if I have a favorite snack. I like Doritos, and I like those pretzel chips that I've been snacking on the last couple of weeks. Don't really nosh on much else. Legends of Tomorrow versus the Matt Hardy brand. Who wins? I'd say Matt Hardy brand by a hair. You could argue it's competence, sure, but at least the Matt Hardy brand has succeeded in what he was trying to do. You know, by hook or by crook, he did acquire the World Heavyweight Championship. So at least he's got that going for him. So at least he's been sort of successful. Can't really say that about LOT. Rumors today that Strowman versus Taker will not happen at Mania, but who feuds with Taker at Mania? Dude, I don't fucking know. There are no good candidates right now. So they're going to have to do some really creative booking to come up with somebody. Or else, I'm honestly happy if Taker just takes the show off. I mean, who else do they got? Who else do they have for an opponent for Taker? The only person I could think of that would make sense would be Kurt Angle. Because he'll be free by that point. They could bring him in for like one match with The Undertaker. I'm sure he wouldn't mind having one more WrestleMania moment. I honestly can't think of anyone else who would make sense. Jeff should be Reigns. Should be Reigns facing Taker instead of Strowman. Well, that would definitely be a swerve. But then who do they have going for the world title then? I mean, Ambrose probably wouldn't work. I mean, it would be cool, but it wouldn't be a draw. Not that Reigns is much of a draw anyway. At least he's got the storyline build up. You'd be the unexpected pick that it was rumored. John Cena's already in the gym working to come back. Pretty sure it's going to be him against Taker. Well, Cena can't even lift his arm completely yet. I think him for Mania is a real crapshoot. I mean, you saw that video. I mean, his shoulders are like this. He can only lift his arm like this high right now. So he's got a lot of rehabbing to do. Honestly, if it's not Kurt Angle facing The Undertaker, I don't know who the hell else they could get. I mean, Braun Strowman would be a terrible idea, but I mean, what else do they have, really? They haven't built up any other good heels. Not that Strowman's a good heel. Honestly, Mania this year looks terrible. The roster is like half the roster is out injured. They've got so few options right now. It's gonna be awful. Thoughts on Bray possibly getting a pity run? I'm not interested. I think, first they give her a title shot because to capitalize on the sympathy of Nikki's injury. Is there any sympathy? Nikki was a heel when she got injured. And it's not like they've done anything with Bray in the meantime. I mean, she's been jobbing for months. Now all of a sudden, oh, Nikki had surgery, so everyone's gonna feel bad for me. Why? They turn these girls face and heel like in every segment. Does anybody really care? Does anyone give a shit anymore? Brie getting a sympathy. You know, her being Daniel Bryan's wife, in that sense, it might make sense to, might be all right. There's surely more sympathy in that regard for her. But for the most part, I don't really care. I think for just to kill one pay-per-view, to occupy Charlotte for one pay-per-view, it works. While Becky and Sasha are occupied, I still think we're looking at a triple threat with Becky, Sasha, Charlotte for Mania. I think that's what it should be. I imagine they'll probably find a way to incorporate all the Total Divas people just because they want to, promote the reality show, which is stupid, but whatever. It's probably what they're going to do. If they just stick to a triple threat title match with the three new girls, they'll have something good there. But Brie getting a title shot at Fastlane, whatever. Carter's times are 9 and 10 next week. Oh, are they? I thought it was 8 and 9. Oh, okay. I'll have to check the website. Honestly, 8 and 9 would be a better time slot for Carter. Carter airing in the 10 p.m. slot? Oh, that's not a good fit. That's where the dark shows go on. They might sync a storyline with Becky, Charlotte, Sasha. If they do that, why not do the same with Ambrose and Triple H? Well, with the roster as depleted as it is, I don't think they're that high on Ambrose. I think they recognize that he's over, but he's still a mid-carder at this point. He's not the guy. Reigns is their guy. I think they're going to try to shoehorn Reigns into that spot as hard as they can. Ambrose would be a swerve. I don't think it's a swerve that they do, though. Plus, they might want him to do something with the IC title. No, wait, he's not the... Is he still the IC champion? Fuck, I don't even remember. Yeah, he is. The Becky, Charlotte, Sasha triple threat is by far the best option. I agree. That goes against what the Bella fans said, that they don't use their men to further their careers by supporting her possible run at the title because of Bryan. The Bella twin fans always say that. Do you really think they would have had Nikki become the longest reigning Divas champion if she wasn't sleeping with John Cena? Do you really think that Nikki Bella, out of all the Divas they have, would have been the person to do that? What's so special about Nikki Bella? Aside from the fact that she's on a reality show. Yeah, but the Bella twin fans can say anything they want, but I think it's pretty obvious why they've had the successes that they've had. As if what Bella fans say have any credibility to me. Yeah. Personally, I always thought the Bella twins' supposed fan base has always been kind of overhyped. I mean, they talk so much about this their Bella army, but have they ever seemed particularly over to you? They haven't to me. Of course, a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that the fans usually have no idea if their faces are heels. The Dudleys turning heel could mean something, but WWE might just not care to do anything with it. Oh, I'm pretty sure they won't care. I mean, the Dudleys have been a nostalgia act since the day they came back to the company. I don't see that changing. No, I think they'll probably stay right where they are, just doing it as heels instead of faces. And I think that will do it. We're about at an hour and a half, slightly over an hour and a half. That's a good place to end it for tonight. I will look up the times for Agent Carter next week, so maybe I'll be able to cover both shows after all. We'll see. That's going to do it. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Is there anything else? No, that's it. Yeah. Okay, thanks for joining in tonight. Same time, same place next week. And stay tuned for the Impact stream, which will be happening Saturday. I might have something going on Saturday, but we'll see. If not, I'll get back to you. Watch my Twitter for updates on that. Yeah, it'll most likely be happening Saturday afternoon, the Impact stream. So I will talk to you guys then. And in the meantime, have a good night, everybody.